Hey, sorry I'm late. I am terrible at both organization and Zoom.
Oh, you're like,
It always like
it's
gets to the
10:02.
time.
You're okay.
Yeah. It always gets to the time and then I'm like, oh wait, track down a link. Where do I even keep links? Like,
Sure.
yeah.
And then it's like, do you have to update the Zoom? You're like, damn it, now I got to wait for it to
Yeah.
do that.
Thankfully did not have to do that, but
Right on, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this today. I really appreciate it.
yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited for it.
Cool. Yeah, our podcast is about your journey in the music industry and how you got to where you are today. I'm not sure if you care about
Yeah.
talking about Mason Proper and that stuff because I know it's part of your journey, but
Sure. Yeah,
is
no,
that
I'm
cool?
happy to touch on whatever you guys want to talk about. But yeah, that's definitely a big part of it.
Sure. Yeah. Right on, man. Well, again, thanks for doing this. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Alpena, Michigan, which is like, it's easiest since it's Michigan, it's easiest to do the hand thing. So it's basically like up here on the
Okay,
hand.
got it.
It's like, yeah, like 4 hours north of Detroit, pretty much. Super tiny place.
Right on. How did you get into music?
Weirdly, for as small as my town was, there was a really, at the time that I was growing up there was a really vibrant music scene.
Uh-huh.
I feel like there was so much boredom in my town that like it sort of became this petri dish of kind of musical people trying to kind of sort of out weird each other.
Okay.
And so every like Friday nights we'd just like rent out like a like a VFW hall kind of thing and just like throw shows with the strangest bands I've still ever seen to this day.
Oh, right. Like little DIY shows
Super
that you guys put
DIY.
together. That's cool. That's
Mhm.
awesome. What was the first instrument you picked up?
I started with bass because I was like a skateboard kid kind of, and I
Oh,
was
so was
hanging out.
I.
Yeah. I feel like that's like a feeder into music because like
Sure.
it just goes hand in hand with it. Like, so I got into like hip hop and punk music at the time because of
Sure.
skateboarding and skate
Cool.
videos. And
Yeah, dude. Oh, man.
I was hanging out with band kids like that were playing in those punk bands, and I just remember like very distinctively being at a practice and like kind of watching the bassist and going, that looks really easy. And it seemed easy enough that I tried it.
That's awesome. What skateboarding videos were you into? Like,
I
what
mean,
companies did
I'm
you
gonna
like?
blank on it. I mean, the one that was like it really stands out in my mind was Welcome to Hell, the Toy Machine.
Oh yeah, the Toy Machine video. Yeah,
yeah.
that one like changed my life. That was the first time I ever heard Iron Maiden and the
Yeah.
Misfits, and
Yeah.
I know it's cool. That's really how I got really into music as well. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's like such a strong connection between skateboarding and music because it's just like it's all flow state kind of. It's all like,
Sure.
it never stops. You have to be in constant motion. So
And like those skateboarders, like the different band shirts and stuff. I was always like, oh, who's Danzig or whatever. It was always so interesting to learn from them, or the video, and you're like, oh, that's a rad song. Who is that? And at the end, okay.
yeah, and you're learning about it in such like you're hearing it for the first time in a context that's like already so dynamic and cool looking. So it just seems even cooler.
Yeah, right. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So bass, you picked up the bass, and then did you form a band with friends?
Yeah, there was I think I was probably in 7th grade maybe at this point, and like one of my best friends older brother had one of the weirder bands in my town, and they were kind of like, they were called Dig Dug, and they were sort of, they called themselves bunk rock, like it was kind of purposefully bad.
Okay.
And so we kind of, again, much like the way I picked up bass by thinking it looked easy, we were like, well, if they can have a band that's just like meant to be bad, then we can have a band that's meant to be bad. And so we did that and started there. And that it's just like, yeah, it was all about having fun, really.
Sure. When was Mason Proper like the first real like band, like serious thing that you're doing?
Yeah. I had bands like all through high school and everything, but in my mind, they seemed serious.
Right.
But then Mason Proper was kind of that was when I went off to college.
Oh, okay.
For something different, I was going to do like computer science or something. And then like I got up there and I just spent all my time playing music, and I kind of thought I was telling myself like, oh, I'm showing myself what I really want to do. So Mason Proper was the band that I started with like all of my smartest friends. I felt like when I decided to really try to just make it my life,
And those are people that you had met at college?
Yeah, college and high school.
In high school?
Various part-time jobs and things.
Sure.
Yeah, I just collected all my favorite people in one place, basically.
Very cool. And then and then you guys just started playing together, and I know you guys put out a few records. Tell me kind of how the ball got going.
I mean, really early on, for whatever reason, we got on like the radar of like a New York indie label really early on, even though we were from Michigan, and they signed us, and we started putting out records, still living in Michigan, but with this New York indie label called Dovecoat, which doesn't exist anymore, but I'm still really close with all the people from the label, which is kind of cool. I actually like make music with one of the people from the label all the time.
Oh, that's really rad.
Now to this day. But yeah, so and that started the first time of like kind of learning what it meant to tour around the country, in that sort of indie way.
Yeah. Well, you don't know how they were able to come in contact with your music? Did you have it up online and stuff? Like, if you're in Michigan, this label's in New York. I wonder how that connection happened.
It was I was playing a lot of local shows, and when indie rock bands from New York would come to town, we were kind of a go-to to play with them,
like the opener and stuff.
Yeah, and so we played with a band called Faces on Film. You might have encountered them at some point.
I've heard the name.
Yeah, they were a Boston band that was really good, and he loved us. The guy from that band loved us, and he kind of went back and told people about it, and then that led to everything kind of starting.
And then so you get signed to this label. You put a record out. You said they put you on tour and stuff?
Yeah. They put us on tour. A lot of East Coast kind of New York kind of stuff, and the last tour we ever did, we made it out to the West Coast, but that was we sort of knew it was ending at that point when we did that.
Oh, really? So you just kind of felt like the band was kind of fizzling out?
Point? It was kind of you'll know what I mean by this. It was kind of like the death of the prime of the Pitchfork era.
Okay.
And we were like a band that I would describe as we needed support from that world to work for what we were doing, and it was just not there anymore. And so it was like we never got that. It was just like, this isn't working.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah. So you guys kind of knew it was coming to an end, so it wasn't like was it like a big breakup or anything, or was it just kind of guys?
Like fizzled. We actually we were working on a third album, and that album became my next band, Hollow and Akimbo. I don't know if you had encountered that, but
I haven't. I haven't seen that one. Okay.
There's a band after Mason Proper before Absofacto called Hollow and Akimbo.
Okay.
And that was born out of the ashes. Basically, it was like some of the music that would have been a third Mason Proper album became a Hollow and Akimbo album.
Got you. What was the sound of that second band? Because the difference between Absofacto and Mason Proper are quite, obvious.
I would say it was even more different from each other. So Absofacto is kind of my bedroom experimental electronic indie pop kind of vibe, and Hollow and Akimbo, I mean, even while we were making the record, we were kind of feeling like we had kind of grown up with this rock kind of vibe. It's indie rock vibe, and we loved that, but we also kind of thought it was dying.
Yeah.
And we were like, let's make the best like experimental rock record that we can, basically. And that was and so that is a much more rock kind of feeling thing. It's like, we went into the studio and tracked, Led Zeppelin drums to tape, with ribbon mics, and a lot of distorted guitars and distorted basses. And then, on the flip side, the Absofacto sound to me is more synths and samples, and it's a little more intimate in a way.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that band, the second band you were in, was that like you touring, and were you guys on a label? And
we were on a Michigan label with that one, and we did a little bit of touring, but at that point we were a little disillusioned with the state of touring as an indie rock band, because it's really, you could just lose your ass basically doing it. So it's so expensive to do, and when you have enough experiences where you're like, if the buzz isn't there and we drive to a city we've never been to before, playing for not a huge band, this is not the best use of this day of our life. And so we hit a point where it was a little bit like that. And so we were doing kind of more weekend warrior styles. Like, if it's not, at least if it was a Friday or a Saturday, you knew some people would come to just get drunk.
Yeah, it's not a Tuesday in some random town in middle America or whatever.
Yeah. No more Mondays. No more Monday night shows.
No more Mondays. I like that. Oh, cool, man. So then, when did Absofacto start? How did that project begin for you?
That was something where it was almost a reaction to some of those experiences. I was at the end of the day, my true love is being in the studio, like kind of making music half as it's partially a, sorry, let me turn that off.
No problem.
Kind of partially a hunting for those like moments of inspiration, but also it's like a design project in a way to me. Like, designing a sound in a sonic world is like something I really love doing, and I love spending a lot of time doing that. And so Absofacto is kind of born out of this need for me to be like, I want to go 100% down that rabbit hole. I want to, like, as deep as it can go. It, like, if it takes me 2 months to get a song right, I don't care. I want to do it. I want to try everything. I want to like play with every synth on the planet. I want to, whatever it is. And that is harder to do in a band context as well, because it's less, you need to kind of appease everybody, and it's just a different thing.
Yeah, you can't just focus on it being yourself. You have to take the opinions of everybody collectively. Yeah.
And it's different I also find it's just very different. It's like, being in a band, I think, is the best if it's like there is that democratic feeling where everybody feels kind of heard, but there's just as much of a place for that single-mindedness. And that doesn't mean you can't collaborate. It just means that at the end of the day, if a decision needs to be made, you can artistically, you can go like, I'm the final like arbiter of taste with this.
Totally. Yeah. Well, how did you get into the like production side of things? Just being in the studio a lot?
It was out of necessity, because growing up where I did, there weren't really like real recording studios at all. I remember attempting to record with sort of a local guy, and it was just like an absolute nightmare. And I was like, surely this is not as well as this can be done. Yeah. And so I went to kind of like a really crappy recording school in Detroit. That was like not great. And even that experience, I remember being in class and being like, there's no way that these teachers are the best of this.
Like the answer.
Either. Yeah. It's like, this is not right either. But what all that did was give me confidence to just kind of like get the basic equipment and just start doing it, which is ultimately how everybody starts, I think, because you just go like, well, what if I did just buy a microphone and started recording, and then it sounds bad, and then it sounds better and better and better and better and better over time.
What was the first song that you wrote and you decided, this is definitely like an Absofacto song, you know what I mean? Or were you like Dissolve, for example? Is that a song that you had written specifically for Absofacto?
Yes, very much so. Yeah. Yeah, Absofacto. I mean, the very first thing, it was like kind of almost a mission statement. It was this song called "No Power" that
Mm-hmm.
isn't on like DSPs and stuff right now. It's like an older one, but and that song was all kind of like me saying to myself that I wasn't going to like kind of like let anyone else have like power over me, like creatively.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of like the entire idea behind the song. And it also started my kind of personal like lyrical trend of imagining like a, you know, kind of like a fantastical world that the song takes place in
Mm-hmm.
some way. And so the very first song kind of had those characteristics of being like true to me, emotionally related to something in my life, but then also with this layer of fantasy to it.
Got it.
That you know, is something that I continued all the way, you know, up to present day, but certainly including Dissolve, which is, you know, which came way later. I think there's about
Mm-hmm.
20 some songs in between that first one and Dissolve.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that was so what was like how did Absefecto start getting, you know, steam and like getting the like people interested in it?
Yeah, it took a long time, and I would say it's still getting people interested in it now too. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but it really, the things that it's kind of, I would say, like founded on is it's not like the loudest project in terms of like demanding attention
Mm-hmm.
or anything. It's kind of, I've always like taken this path of just make the music that I really love and kind of accept that it's like a particular thing in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll find people, you know, in its way. It'll find like the people who really love it over time. And that was a slow process, and it's still a slow process, but it was just one small thing at a time. It would be, you know, I was releasing music on Bandcamp originally, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I would send it out to blogs, and maybe most wouldn't write about it, but one would. And every once in a while, I would come, you know, there would be one like Indie Shuffle or the Music Ninja, where they would kind of let me know, like, whoa, we really like this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would definitely always keep, you know, sending the music to outlets like that. But then above all, I kind of from day one, I really like ascribed to the sort of like 1,000 true fans idea, which is like, if you have like, if you can have like 1,000 people around the world that truly love what you do, then it's probably, then you can make it sustainable, which I don't know how true that is.
Wow, that's a great concept. I haven't heard that
Yeah,
before.
it's something people talk about sometimes, but, and so I navigated that by really like, you know, every time someone would buy something on Bandcamp, just really like thanking them and being really appreciative and trying to, but well before like social media was necessarily exactly like, now everybody's just, you know, on social media all day engaging, but I was doing it in
Mm-hmm.
like email, you know.
Yeah,
Cool.
that is cool. Just responding to everybody, like, thank you so much
Yeah.
for you know
And
buying it.
chatting back and forth, you know, like a little bit, and just learning who people were. And that gave me like confidence that what I was doing had value, like deep value
Mm-hmm.
to a few people, and even if it wasn't reaching a lot of people.
Got
Right?
it. Mm-hmm. What year did you start Absofacto?
That was like, it was about, I think initially those first songs were like maybe 10 years ago now.
Wow.
Done a bit, yeah. And it was slow, and there were, you know, there's times in there where I just was doing other things, and
Mm-hmm.
so it kind of was always this thing that I was like, I'll always have this
Right.
while I'm living my life. But then it became, you know, maybe like 4 years ago, it became more like, oh, this is going to be everything.
Okay. And what
Yeah.
was that? What made that shift for you, or what was
That
the moment that
really
switched it?
was the couple songs leading up to and then culminating in Dissolve
Mm-hmm.
was the result of me saying, I'm just going to do this nonstop. I'm just going
Okay.
to go all in on this. I'm going to try to release a song. You know, at the time I was telling myself, I'm going to try to release a song every month, even though knowing me, it would be every two, just because I take a long time. But,
Mm-hmm.
and that ultimately culminated in Dissolve, which far and away outperformed anything that I had ever done before. Like it just like hit this chord with people from day one when I self-released it originally.
So when you released it, yeah, because you self-released it, what, in 2015?
Yeah, 2015. Yep.
And you were already seeing traction, and it was hitting with people prior to the, when you signed with Atlantic, and it really broke the ceiling.
There's the website Hype Machine, which kind of like tracks all the blogs, and like that was the first time. Like I had always been on there, but that it like very definitively went to number one on Hype Machine at the time, and like it just people were really resonating with it. And I really remember like right when it kind of realizing how it's so ironic that it's called Hype Machine, because I realized like the power of even a little bit of hype, like right when it went number one, because there's a big difference between number two and number one. It seems like.
Oh, is there?
The day it went number one on that site, which I don't know how much that even means anymore, but at the time it meant something. I heard from like two different major labels, like a bunch of managers, the head of music for Apple. Like I just started getting emails like from people who I had never heard from before.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what's up with this? Like
that must have been pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was. It was cool. It was and like ultimately that led to like trips to go meet labels, do different things like that, which it's a head spinning thing for any artist when you have that moment, because like I think this is true of like probably everybody, is the feeling of it is this mix of, yes, it's being recognized. Like I knew there was something good, and this feels really great. And there's also this terror that you're like, but I've never been in this position before, and I'm probably going to mess it up. I'm probably going to do something like, because I don't know. You don't have experience until you do.
Sure. Sure. And why'd you end up deciding with signing with Atlantic?
There was a really, so my A&R that signed me there, Stefan, he basically, when I met him, he had actually worked for the indie label that Mason Proper was on. And so I had never met him before. I didn't know him. He was an intern there. And when we met, like I kind of like, oh, like, you just have to like shake his hand or whatever. And he's like, give me a hug. I feel like I've known you my whole life. And and then he told me, and he's like, I had actually, the second Mason Proper album, he's like, that album changed my taste in music forever, kind of. Basically.
Whoa.
And so like that's a pretty like significant thing, and that was something no one else could compete with in terms of like the connection.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. And then once you signed with them, they re-released Dissolve, and
we started started going into like writing mode kind of for a while, and learning how to work together, I guess, on some stuff. And then ultimately re-released Dissolve on the 1,000 Pieces EP, along with some new songs. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. How long ago? Lemon Drop's the newest one, right?
Lemon Drop is the newest one right now. Yeah.
Yeah. That people have heard. And is Lemon Drop going to be a part of an EP, or is that just kind of a standalone single?
Right now, because there was kind of, there was sort of like I don't want to say like a dead period, but like sort of a time period where I wasn't really like dropping stuff. And obviously like last year, I'm sure you kind of know that Dissolve sort of like blew up suddenly.
Yeah.
And
can you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, it was very much in parallel with everybody in the world all of a sudden realizing that TikTok existed.
Yeah.
It was one of the first sort of like success stories, I guess, on that platform. And I didn't even know what it was when it started.
Did you know what Musical.ly was?
I
know that before?
Barely knew what Musical.ly was.
Okay.
I did know. And actually the song had been apparently popular to some extent on Musical.ly.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it was one of the few that made the jump to TikTok.
Okay.
When they changed it. So,
So how'd you find out that it was doing so well on TikTok?
I got a Facebook message, which isn't like, I'm surprised I even saw it. Thank God I did see it, but I don't really use Facebook. But
Right.
I happened to get this message from someone that was like, "Hey, your song is viral on TikTok," and it was just like, "What's TikTok? I don't know."
Yeah.
And so I went on there, and looking back, it was like, by today's standards now, whatever, a year later, it was barely viral at the time.
Oh.
But I sort of like made a big deal out of it. I was like, wait, something's happening. What is this? I don't know what this is. If it's something I can miss, I don't want to miss it.
Right.
And
now
so
look
I
at TikTok.
Yeah. And the cool thing was that, like, because I sort of brought it up, and no one knew what it really meant at that point. I don't even know if TikTok knew what like a viral song was going to mean at that point, because it was before Old Town Road had happened.
Yeah.
And and so basically we all kind of like trying to figure out, like, what is this? Like, what does this mean? And then really strangely, this woman who's a Marine made a TikTok where she was like jumping up and down in front of a mirror and making it look like she was falling through like an endless portal.
Oh, okay.
And it was to my song, and that became a trend that ultimately ended up being like 1 million people made videos.
Oh, it was like a challenge type thing.
Yeah.
Got it.
And that took the song from, very, very underground sleeper, kind of sort of like a cult favorite, but like in the deepest sense of the word, to something that, well, people may not have known. Some people may still not know Absofacto. They know that song.
Right.
No.
Right. Yeah.
They heard the chorus of that song.
Sure.
It became inescapable. Yeah.
And is that when it transferred to radio, or was it already on radio?
Yeah, it was not on radio. It had been on like smaller radio formats a little bit.
Like, sure. But once it went to TikTok, that's when Alt Nation was calling and everybody else.
Yeah, Alt Nation picked it up, and KNRK in Portland as well. And both Alt Nation and KNRK both made both like took it to #1 really early on their stations, which was so cool, and it gave it so much energy. And then the rest of the radio world kind of like bubbled up.
Sure.
It took a long time. It was like, actually the song was it took, out of any songs, it was the 5th longest rise to #1 for alternative.
Really?
In the history of the alternative charts. It took like 33 weeks.
Wow.
And so there are only a few songs that took longer than that, and it was only by a couple weeks. So yeah, it took forever.
I wonder if Empire of the Sun is on that list, just because that one song took like 8 years to really resonate. That's an interesting.
I bet they are. I don't know exactly how. I think it is the time between it hitting the charts and
how long it takes
#1
to #1.
So I think maybe I want to say like Out of Your League or something might have been one of them.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Song, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's cool. I mean, geez, for it to come back like that, like that must be so crazy for you. You put the song out, and then TikTok blows it up, and now it's on radio. And then from there, were you getting on tours and stuff? Have you toured with Absefecto?
Yeah. I've done two full tours. The first one was with my friend 2 Feet.
I know that band. Yeah. I Feel Like I'm Drowning.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He's great, and he when he was going on tour a couple years back now, he's like I want you to open for me. So we did that, and that was like one of his first like big tours, which was cool. I think it was his first headline tour, maybe.
Oh wow.
And then we went out. I went out this past year before all this COVID craziness.
Yeah.
With Shade.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, who was like
Wow.
at the peak of. I don't even know if
Trampolines.
they're at the peak now, but they were at like full on trampoline like attention, which is
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah. Well, then you had your huge song too. That must have been a crazy
Yeah,
tour.
it was really
Wow.
fun. Yeah, it was like it was that tour where you had like watch the first band and then it's like Dissolve goes crazy and you watch second band and like Trampoline goes crazy. Like it was just very much so that thing, which is cool. It made it feel fresh, you know?
Sure, sure. After like the rebirth of Dissolve, when was that after that? Was that when you started writing like Lemon Drop and the new song that's coming out
Yeah.
in a couple weeks?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always making music, but the thing that I found was that all the energy around Dissolve really like kind of crystallized the energy and momentum around my music in general. And
Mm-hmm.
so while I had been making a lot of music all along, it focused it in a different way because there was just this different energy around creating and releasing things quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Not that necessarily I've been dropping things super quickly because it's still me and I'm still like it just takes me a long time to be happy with something.
Yeah.
but but now it's just, you know, it's all I think about really. It's just like what's the next one. I'm always trying to think about like what's that next like just really like kind of just impactful feeling I can create, because that's how I'm always thinking of it. It's just like it's creating feelings, creating emotions for
Mm-hmm.
people, and kind of always like coming up with that next one.
Mm-hmm. Right now with the quarantine and everything, have you been spending a lot of time writing?
Yeah, I'm working on like maybe 3 or 4 songs at once right now.
Whoa.
Yeah, not really like full on like album mode or anything, but kind of just there's a bunch of songs that it's just getting them to the finish line, and then they'll
Mm-hmm.
come out. And yeah,
Very
I'm
cool.
liking just like being kind of trying to be quicker on my feet and just make something and have it come out, you know?
Yeah, yeah. You have a new one coming out, Someone Else's Dream.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that song about?
That song is it's kind of an interesting one because it's really in a very real sense. It's the sequel to Dissolve.
Uh-huh.
It's really the song that like I actually started it right after I made Dissolve
Oh,
originally.
interesting. Yeah.
And it has a lot of that vibe to it, the
Uh-huh.
feeling of Dissolve. And you know, it kind of was like lost in the shuffle for a little bit. And then this, you know, like maybe a couple months ago, the demo for it kind of like resurfaced, and everyone, including me, was kind of like, oh wow, like listen to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just really like it just feels like the right song kind of. And so like I, you know, kind of cracked it back open, started like working on it more and get it to like a really good place.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool. It's about it's called, you know, it's someone else's dream. As you might
Mm-hmm.
imagine, it's kind of like about being trapped in someone else's dream,
Mm-hmm.
like sort of in a literal sense in the song, where it's this you know, this literal dream world that you're kind of like trapped in and can't escape. I almost like picture it like the Truman Show or something, where it's like this
Sure.
is not where I'm supposed to be, and you start to realize it.
Uh-huh.
But in a, you know, in a more real sense, to me, it was kind of like about, I was giving a lot of my time and creative energy for a while to other people's projects more
Mm-hmm.
so, and at the expense of my own like creative like force inside. And the song was sort of me saying like I need to tap back into my core creativity, like what I want to be doing, get back down to in the weird rabbit hole of my own creativity, and stop just like, because you can exhaust yourself creatively sometimes giving that to like
Other people,
other people's
yeah.
projects and stuff, that is one. It's a beautiful thing to do, but it's not beautiful if they're not valuing it, like and realizing like what you might be like giving up to give that to them.
Right. Yeah. Because you could be exhausting a lot of your own creativity in somebody else's project where you just focused all that on, Absofacto.
Which exactly. Yeah. And I'm not like, I love collaborating. I love like working on stuff with people, but at the time that was what I was struggling with that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I had a chance to hear the song, the new one.
Great.
I love it. I love how upbeat it is. I think it's perfect for, like summer. It feels like a summer song. You're just cruising around. And I love the lyric in the chorus in the front seat of their car. Like I can't remember exactly how you phrase it, but
I mean the front seat of your car is Lemon Drop.
Lemon Drop. Maybe, but I know someone else's dream. Okay, maybe I'm getting them too confused because I've been listening to both of them quite a bit. Those two, and then I've heard the other two. Okay, well, I love that lyric too. The Lemon Drop lyric is the one that really stuck out to me.
Someone else's dream. Yeah, it's even if I don't know quite exactly where I want to be, I'm not going to stay here stuck in someone else's dream.
Okay, yeah. I remember it being a lot more like upbeat and kind of melodic and stuff.
Very, very upbeat. Yeah. No, I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you've heard it. That's like not only a few people have heard that one so far. So
it's really good. It's really good. And is that going to be part of an EP or a record, or is it just?
It's coming out as a single initially. It's kind of and we're making a really cool anime music video for it. Kind of like from found this really great animator that's just like, and kind of handed it to him, was like, make this like your opus, basically. So work that's being made right now, which I'm really excited about too.
Very cool. Very cool. Have you done any of the are you doing any of those live streams on Instagram or anything like that?
A little bit. It's not my favorite thing in the world, so I don't do it that much, but it's kind of, it's a little overwhelming sometimes because of the chat. It gets like crazy. Really
Are you going on and performing, or are you kind of just going on and chatting with people?
I prefer to go on and chat, I guess, just overall. But that might be like at the end of the day, it's like I'm a better musician at heart, I think. And like there is like, no matter what, there's always a little bit of like stage fright, and I'll admit that fully. So it's just not something that I gravitate towards doing. But from time to time I'll do it.
That's cool. Yeah. Thank you so much, John, for talking to me today. You've been so awesome. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man. It was really great talking to you too. I love you. You know all the background and stuff. It's great. It's fun to have that context. It makes it deeper.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been this has been such a good time. I love that you have the skateboarding background too, because I'm like, I know these songs. Like, like I love that. I have one more question for you. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do. Off the top of my head, it's kind of, you can't compare yourself to other people. And if you, as an artist, if you're comparing yourself to other people, it is just a recipe for disaster, because you're going to do two things. You're going to automate, because you already love them. You're going to assume you're worse at every step. And you're not, you're just different. And so the way and I guarantee you this, the way every artist you've ever loved has operated is they figure out who they actually are creatively by making things, and they just double down on that again and again and again. And that's just infinitely more powerful. And that's how you become like your favorite artist. Your favorite artists aren't imitating somebody else. And so that's the biggest thing. Just whatever your weird creative spark is, just go 100% towards that and trust it.